Okay, so today we will be discussing literary devices, particularly used in Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven. So first, what are literary devices? Literary devices are any standardized method an author uses to convey his or her message. The ones we'll be focusing on today are assonance, alliteration, and internal rhyme. Assonance is the repetition of the sound of a vowel or diphthong in non-rhyming, stressed syllables near enough to each other for the echo to be discernible. For example, the sound of her voice thrilled me and filled me with joy. Thrilled and filled share the same vowel sound and are used close enough to each other that the similar sound is noticed. Alliteration. Alliteration is the occurrence of the same letter or sound at the beginning of adjacent or closely connected words. For example, the lovely lilacs lured her away. The words lovely lilacs lured all share the same L sound and are adjacent within the sentence. Internal rhyme is a rhyme involving a word in the middle of a line and another at the end of the line or in the middle of the next line. So for example, I took the car and it wasn't far. These are in the same sentence, and it is internal rhyme because car and far rhyme. Car is in the middle of the sentence, and far is at the end. For the second example, the sky was a clear, rich, shiny blue. I knew it was true, but I stayed inside. Blue and true rhyme, however, true is in the next sentence. The second word must be in the sentence directly following the first word to be considered internal rhyming. Another important literary device that I didn't mention in the beginning is a symbol. A symbol is a thing that represents or stands for something else, especially a material object representing something abstract. This is often used in poems and literature. For example, the Black Raven in Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven. We will further discuss what a symbol is and how it impacts the meaning of a poem in class. So now, we will listen to the poem being read aloud. As we're listening, please follow along either on the screen or using your hard copies that were given to you in class. Write down any questions that you may have and we can discuss them in class tomorrow.
Dreary, while I pondered, weak and weary, over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore. While I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as of someone gently rapping at my chamber door. "'Tis some visitor," I muttered, tapping at my chamber door. "Only this, and nothing more." Ah, distinctly I remember. It was in the bleak December, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. Eagerly I wished the morrow. Vainly I had sought to borrow from my books surcease of sorrow. Sorrow for the lost Lenore, for the rare and radiant maiden whom the angels name Lenore, nameless here forevermore.
So for the purposes of this project and time, I'm not going to play the entire thing because it is 9 minutes long. But from here, we will go to the actual poem and do some work here. So please pull out your study guide so you can familiarize yourself with what questions we will be discussing in tomorrow's class. You can pause the video to do so. If you forgot your sheet, you can access it on our shared Google Doc. Okay, so this is The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe. It's filled with literary devices and largely based around the symbol of a raven. Ravens are typically used in literature to represent bad omens and create dark moods and tones. I'm going to go over a few lines highlighting some of the literary devices that we have learned about. So starting with the beginning. Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered, weak and weary. Dreary, 'dreary' 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 are alliteration, or internal rhyme. They share the same rhyming sounds, dreary and weary. Weak and weary are also literary devices because they are alliteration because they share the W sound. Over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore, while I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping. Nearly napping is also alliteration because they share the N sound. There is also the use of internal rhyme in here with napping and tapping, whereas napping is used in the middle of the sentence and napping ends the sentence. As of some one gently rapping at my chamber door. 'Tis some visitor, I muttered, tapping at my chamber door. Only this and nothing more. Ah, I distinctly remember it was in the bleak December, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. This would be another example of internal rhyme. December and ember. Though they're in different sentences, they're still internal rhyme because the second word comes directly after the first sentence with the first rhyme. Eagerly I wished the morrow, vainly I had sought to borrow. Again, internal rhyme with morrow and borrow. So using these examples, I would like you to go over the rest of the poem and circle or highlight any alliteration, assonance, or internal rhyming you find and write which literary device it is. You can go back in the video and look over the definitions that I gave you. Hopefully you can write them down, and this way you don't have to keep going back and forth. And then you can finish out the poem and have it ready to bring into class tomorrow. I also would like to go over some vocabulary words, just 5 vocabulary words that I want you to define based off of context clues. So I'll circle them here. Pondered, quaint, ember, wrought, and surcease. Please define those 5 words based on context clues and bring them in tomorrow, as well as your hard copy of your poem with all the markings on it.